Welcome back, everyone. This is Inside the Diamonds podcast. This is episode 4. I'm your host, JC, and I'm joined tonight with CJ. How you doing, CJ?
I am fantastic. Ready for this week and excited for what's going on already this season.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy, interesting first 2 weeks. Pretty busy, I would say, between not just the games, but also what you and I and a few of the others have been doing over at Inside the Diamond between all the roster moves, the season series previews, and then, of course, the newest thing, the Down on the Farm, that we've been trying to introduce to folks for their favorite teams and kind of introducing them into the minor leagues and showing them what the top prospects are doing. So we've been very busy. It's been a lot of fun. I've caught myself already switching from major league games to minor league games, which is my son doesn't get it, but at the same time, I'm watching a heck of a lot more baseball with purpose this year rather than just for nothing. So it's
There's got to
been a
be a
lot of fun.
way. There's got to be a way on MLB TV where you can get any game instead of having to change who your favorite team is every time you want to go watch a minor league game. I found myself this weekend when Paul Skeens started. I got to be a
Yeah.
Pirates fan for the day to watch the Pirates AAA team.
What
They
I
got to
wish you
be
could do is split the screen, right? Have major
yeah,
league game and
yeah.
now we'd be talking. So I was in Buffalo this past week for my son's nationals, and I'm not normally an outgoing, like I don't go out and just shoot the shit with all the dads normally unless it's a big event. I found myself watching the Royals and White Sox game and falling asleep at the desk at my computer, just watching the game, involved, engaged, watching it, kind of, just watching that Royals team. And I really am enjoying the start to this season. Really looking forward to tomorrow. I know you and I are both going to opening day for the Red Sox.
Yep.
I haven't been to a Sox game, and I haven't been to opening day in 7 years. This will be my first one in 7 years, and I've got weekend tickets, and I just haven't gone. So I'm really looking forward to that and watching, see how the Red Sox look. Watching the Orioles should be a good game. Weather's going to be nice. And, tonight after the podcast, I'm going to watch the Cubs and Padres and probably games that are still going on at that time, too.
They changed the pitching matchup on us. It was
What do you
originally
mean?
supposed to be Bayo Irvin if it follows the rotation trend.
Yeah.
But because tomorrow's an off day, they put Burns tomorrow against Bayo,
Oh,
and they moved Irvin to Wednesday. So because of the off day, Burns got bumped up a day, which I don't like based on the head-to-head matchup because Bayo hasn't been great.
Bayo's awful in the daytime.
That's the other thing I was just going to say. He's terrible in the daytime. And Burns is Corbin Burns. I mean, he's a Cy Young candidate. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. But I had it as 0-4, all the emotions of the game.
Yeah.
But then I saw today who's going tomorrow for the ceremony. No Pedro.
What?
No Pedro.
Was he got something with? Why not?
I have no idea.
He must have something with MLB tonight that he can't.
There was 4 names from that team in 0-4 that stuck out to me that won't be at the game tomorrow. Pedro's 1. 2 was Mark Bellhorn because Bellhorn was a big part of that ALCS.
Yeah.
Bill Miller, another big one. Big
Yeah.
part of that ALCS, that single that scored Dave Roberts.
Yeah.
And this one he's not a big one that really is effective, but because of the day and what they're doing, Doug Mirabelli.
Really?
The Wakefield ceremony and everything, I don't know how Mirabelli's not going.
Jesus, that makes no sense because when I think Doug Mirabelli, I think of the cop car leading him back to the stadium when they signed him back and he came back for that. That makes, Bill Miller, I remember, in that season they won the first World Series in 2004. It started way before that series when they were down 0-3. It happened in that July series with the Veritek A-Rod. Bill Miller hit the game winner in that one.
Yep.
I was there for that one too. I was fortunately there for that game. Bill Miller was undervalued.
He owned it.
Oh yeah, big time owned it. But he was undervalued as a player.
correct me. I don't know if it was that season or what season it was, but he had the 2 grand slams in Texas from both sides of the plate. I don't know if that's
Oh,
still the record, but I think nobody's
from
ever.
both sides of the plate, I think so, because I know Tatis had for Tatis's father had one with, but he was right-handed.
Right.
So he
I
had
think.
two in I
I
think
think.
his was in an inning.
Yeah, it was because I think didn't Fernando Jr. do it?
I wouldn't be
He might.
surprised.
He
I
might have.
just know his dad did, but
That was a big thing though. Something like that happened because they said his dad did it and he did it too. I forget what he did, but there was something that happened like that.
yeah, there's gonna be a reason why Mirabelli's not gonna be there.
I I have my uh suggestions on maybe why. That's probably not the word I'm looking for, but speculations. I have my
Yeah.
speculations on why. Um, we all know Schilling's not going. If you're a Red Sox fan, you know why he's not going, and even if you're not
Yep.
a Red Sox fan, you probably know. Um, there, I believe Schilling said on that podcast when he broke the news that he heard it from Mirabelli. So part of me wonders
Oh
if
Jesus
Mirabelli
Christ!
feels guilty and like
I
he's
didn't
part of.
know that.
I believe that was the case. I'm not 100% on that, so don't quote me or anything on that. But I feel like that was something along the lines of the story. Like Schilling started it with somebody told me. I think he did say a name, and I thought it was Mirabelli. I might be wrong, but it's one of those things. I was a catcher growing up my whole life, up until about my junior year of high school, and that bond you create with a pitcher, especially when you're their designated catcher, it stays with you forever. Like I still have friends that I went to high school with. I may not see them all the time because I got a family and I got other things going on, but I still talk to them, once a month, and that relationship stays with you forever. So that's part of my speculation on why he's not going. If that is the case, if I'm remembering it correctly, that he is the one that Schilling said told him,
Yeah.
then I wonder if he feels guilty and that's not why he's going. Or it could be like you said, he's got something else going on. We're just completely way off base here, and I'm just
Probably could
putting
be
my
a little. I mean, Mirabelli. uh, Mirabelli comes across to me without knowing the guy. Don't know him at all. But probably if I'm looking at it, and he was the one to tell Schilling in trust, right? Mirabelli doesn't come across as this guy he was never really in the limelight, never wanted to be in the limelight, did his job, was phenomenal catching Wakefield. That's a tough fucking task. No matter who you put back there, that's tough. And how close he was probably with Wakefield. Again, just all speculation and just talking about something that's close to both of us. And he probably, again, all speculation. But if I'm him and that is the case, the guilt that I would feel because you trusted somebody else and
right.
mistrust in someone that's got a huge mouth in Schilling, which, and hopefully it's just something else, and nothing more. But that team was special. I remember, man, I remember watching every single game of that season. Like I said, I think I said the last episode about my dad and mom, and I just, I worked, 12 hours a day, came home and would watch those games. And I remember being in this house, and my neighbor, who's still across the road, who I went to college with, came over after the game, and we were smoking cigars on my front steps. After they won the series, and it was just I was there for game 4, game 3 and game 4 of the Yankees series, and that team and those players, especially those guys that we mentioned, those Bellhorn, Miller, those guys were just underrated, did their jobs, and would just really came up key in that series. And the fact that they're not going to be there shocks me a little bit. I'll be, interested to see, especially with everything with Wakefield tomorrow. I have his book. Um, the guy was just a professional. I know they say a lot of this, they say this in football about some players, they're just a professional, inside and out. They're a role model. Tim Wakefield was probably one of those guys that is undervalued. And I heard Euclid this weekend talking when they were playing the A's about him and just remembering different stuff. Him and his wife, neither one of them wanted anyone to know about what they were going through.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They valued their privacy, but at the same time, they knew how fortunate they were. and they didn't want anyone to feel sorry for him, and didn't want that attention. And it's a shame because he wasn't the typical starting pitcher that was going to blow you away with his fastball. He
Yep.
was just going to embarrass the shit out of you with a ball that was moving at 55 to 60 miles an hour, like you were playing wiffle ball out back. And he just was. I loved listening to him on Nesson as well when he was doing the broadcast, when he would join there. He just
So
was
much,
one of those guys.
so much knowledge,
Yeah.
and so much to say.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did not expect the opening to go in this direction with tomorrow by any means, but I do have to do a score check. Anything in our little wager?
The Rangers just scored two.
Did they? Isn't that just
2-2.
terrific?
It's tied.
Yeah, real sad.
All
So,
right, I'll be fair. The Astros scored two in the first inning, so I'll help out.
all right, there you go. So, I got to thank you before we get into the first topic for even asking me to do this and get involved, because this has brought back something for me that has been missing. I don't have a lot of hobbies unless it involves my kids. My kids are my world. I got three of them. They all revolve around their sports, and then trying to juggle that time. But finding a different hobby that's not me sitting at home doing work and doing something that is focused to this, and watching baseball, and just it's something that I miss playing baseball. Being 42, my body's not quite where it needs to be doing that shit anymore. But I really miss the game. I miss watching it. And, being in this house where I grew up reminds me an awful lot of the times I did sit here with my parents, with my father and mother, were just watching these games. So it's just brought a lot of good memories back. So I really do appreciate it. And this has been a lot of fun. So why don't we hang on just 1 second?
Yeah.
All right, love you too. Get ready for the game tomorrow.
Hi.
No, go to bed, you goofball.
We got
Sorry.
a special appearance. Look at that.
Special appearance by my daughter Ella. Keep the light on, goof. Sorry, yeah. I forgot. Normally I each night my 10-year-old, we have to do for about 410 days straight. I have to give her something to dream about. The past 10 days have been about what she's going to eat at the game, between the Bruins game at night and what she's going to have at the Red Sox game tomorrow. And she's awful pumped up. Her Adley Rushman shirt came in today, and now she's been searching online for her catcher's gear that she's looking for softball and all that stuff. So, like I said,
Love
all
that.
this stuff
family.
is bringing up. Yeah, it's bringing back. I mean, I'm watching teams that I could give two shits about, but I'm watching the game. 3? God damn. But my daughter, who's 10, like I said, in the catcher, what she likes to watch is catcher's framing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And she'll mention, she goes, Dad, that was a little much, don't you think? That wasn't very subtle. But she's paying attention. So it's bringing in that aspect of family that we talked about last episode with your grandfather, my dad, and it's allowing me that time to escape work, escape the everyday, and be with my kids and them just observing and watching something and seeing something I love so much as at their age. And it's really a lot of fun. So to kick off tonight, we started the year waiting for the Marlins to win their first game. Finally, have done it. Now, every team in the major leagues finally has a win. The Marlins and White Sox all have wins. The White Sox got one against the Braves, and the Marlins finally pulled themselves out of the hole and got one as well, which is a little surprising. But when we're looking at everything, what's your biggest surprise? Fuck. Damn.
The Pittsburgh Pirates are my biggest surprise team for the start of the week. But in particular, going to the Pirates. Now, he lost his last start, but Jared Jones.
Yeah.
I mean, he is the 61st prospect on my top 100 and third Pirates prospect. But his first start, he just blew me away at what he could do. And I knew he was a good pitcher, but to come in and do that, granted it was the Marlins, so let's not get carried away. But going 5 2/3, he gave up 3 runs, 2 hits, but 10 punch-outs. That to me was the mind-blowing part.
Yeah.
And then to come back out in his second start, and again, 3 earned runs, not great. But then he gets the Orioles. So you go from right now the worst team in baseball to a team that everybody has as a World Series contender in the American League. And what does he do in his second career start against a good team like that? He goes 6 innings, gives up 2 runs on 6 hits. Both of those runs were on home runs. But then he doesn't give up a walk, and he punches out 7. To me, again, we talked about this, I think, in our previews for the National League. They're going to be a problem to watch in the future. And they have so much pitching coming. Paul Skeens is blowing people away in AAA. He's just telling the Pirates, you have to call me up now. Yeah. It's time. But to me, they've jumped off to the start, and they are 8-2. And right now, they got a 2-game series against the Tigers. And it's in the bottom of the 7th, and it's 7-2 Pirates. So they locked up Mitch Keller before the season started, which great move. That's, a veteran. I shouldn't say a veteran. I mean, what's he been in the league? 3-4 years, 5 years?
He's a veteran for the Pirates.
Right, in that aspect, yes. But then Marco Gonzalez has looked pretty good with a 2.46 ERA and a 1 WHIP. Martin Perez, who pitched for the Pirates 2 years ago, I don't know. He was there last year, I believe. And
no, he was signed this year as a free agent, but he was there in the past, I do believe, without looking into it. But
where has he not been? He guy's like a journeyman. He goes everywhere. Bailey Falter has not been great. I think he's only had 1 start actually. Nope, 2. Yeah. And he's got a 5.40 ERA. But to me, that team has been surprising to a division we talked about that was so wide open that anybody could take it. The Pirates came out to an early start and tried to lay their claim. I mean, they did it last year, so we can't get carried away after 10 games. They came out as the hottest team. They beat the Red Sox in 2 games last year, and then I think right after that happened, not even a week later, they just fell off, and that was it for them. So to jump out of the gate, that's the first team to me that has surprised me to kick off 2024.
So for me, even though I picked them to finish better than you did in the AL Central, is the Indians. They have a 36-run differential. That I did not see coming, given their offense, right? I did not see the Cleveland Indians outscoring their opponents by 36 runs.
You're going to get us sued. It's the Guardians.
God damn. Yeah.
Well, I know, it's tough. It's tough. I get it. But I got to stop you the second time so we just don't get in trouble.
Yeah, no, the Cleveland Guardians. Previously, the Cleveland, I used to love that team with Alomar, Bell, Cologne.
Nagy.
That team was just so much fun to watch. I remember watching, I forget his name, but number 50, the pitcher, just after they lost to the Yankees, sitting in the dugout. I can't remember his name. Sitting in the dugout, just sitting there and absorbing and soaking it all in, the loss and how much it meant to them. And I actually watched Major League, the movie, on the way back from Buffalo while I drove on 90. And it just, like, that Cleveland organization, we'll leave it at that, was one of the funnest groups to watch in the late 90s, mid 90s. Dennis Martinez, they had all those guys coming in. Albert Bell, I just absolutely loved. I love Kenny Lofton. But to see what they're doing now, the Guardians are doing now, is, again, if they were 8-2 and they had outscored their opponents by 8 runs and they had only scored 32, I could see that with their pitching staff. But right now,
were you trying to think of Julian Tavares?
Yes, Julian Tavares. He sat in the dugout and was just so beside himself after that loss. Like, that just, to me, stuck in my head in regards to, yes, these guys are getting paid big bucks, but it mattered so much to him
Mhm.
that sat into my head as a high school baseball player. Like, shit, these guys are getting paid money and it matters to them. They're not Anthony Rendon, they actually give a shit.
Mhm.
And to me, that just stuck out. And to see this Guardians team go out there and what they've given up 20 earned runs. 20 earned runs on the year. And Shane Bieber, who we'll get to later, has given up 0. That's going to hurt.
Yep.
But their bullpen is pretty damn good. Class A is an elite closer. I think probably one of the best in baseball. If he was on, the Dodgers, he'd be the best. Everyone would know who he is. But for them, for me, that was the biggest surprise. And everyone is always talking about Stephen Kwan. He's hitting 383, 11 runs, 18 hits, 2 doubles, 3 RBIs, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts, and 47 at bats, and he's hitting 383. Jimenez is hitting 324. Josh Naylor, who when he first came up was a guy that was hitting in the 250s, 260s. Last year he hit over 300. He's hitting over 300 now. And Will Brennan,
Brian Rocchio.
yeah, Rocchio is hitting 273, but he's got 2 RBIs. He's,
He's hitting
getting on
310.
base.
Am I looking at the wrong stats here? I got him at 310.
Maybe. I've got him at 10 games and hitting 273.
I got him at 8
But
games hitting 310. They've only played
okay,
9
so
games.
last game he didn't play as well. So either way, even Will Brennan was a guy that I mentioned, I think, when we did the breakdowns, is a guy that is, he's got the talent. It's just a matter of can he put it together. And so far this year, hitting 296 with 4 RBIs. Granted, he's only played 8 games and he's only got 8 hits, but they've got sneaky potential. And I do believe when we'll get into it later, Bieber going down hurts. They do have Carrasco. They do have some guys coming back from injury. But still, the Guardians to me was the biggest surprise. Not necessarily the record, but the 36 run differential was the biggest surprise for me. What was your second biggest surprise?
I actually really didn't have one. I was thinking the Guardians like you did, but I took them off because, like you mentioned, the Bieber injury.
Yeah.
A team that doesn't have a winning record but kind of stood out to me as a big surprise is the Angels. All right. Well, actually, you know what? What am I doing? I'm dumb. The biggest surprise was the Red Sox.
Yeah, that's my second one.
Okay, so what am I doing? I'm scrolling past them like that. I should say the big surprise from everybody else's aspect, because I went into the first 10 games and I was adamant they're coming home 6-4. Now
Yeah.
they proved me wrong. They're coming home 7-3. So that's why I didn't name them right away, is because I had them at 6-4. So it's not a surprise to me they're 7-3. What the bigger part of the surprise is from the Red Sox is Tanner Houck. And
Yes.
time and time again, every year we go into this of why are we trying this again with him and Whitlock, and why are we trying them as starters? All right, let's go through some numbers real quick. Tanner Houck, 2 starts, 12 innings pitched, 2-0, a 0 ERA, a 0.75 whip, 17 strikeouts, which, by the way, is in the top 5 of the American League. And I believe, if I remember correctly what I saw today, not only the American League, but in the top 5 of all of baseball through 2 starts. Yeah. A guy that literally is your number 5 starter that everybody said should be a bullpen arm. And he's come out of the gate. And essentially, if we want to take Bieber out of the conversation, he's in the top 4. So,
who does he remind you of? Because there's one name that comes to mind of like an old Red Sox.
He's the right-handed Chris Sale.
I had Derek Lowe, but he doesn't throw the sinker. But Derek, just his demeanor, his stature on the mound, and maybe his behavior outside of the ballpark is different than Lowe's, because I know Lowe liked to get down and dirty outside of it. But like they're the Red Sox starting rotation and their bullpen, which I'll give you all the credit in the world because anytime we talk about them, whether it be on the podcast or just shooting the shit, you're always giving credit to Andrew Bailey. Always.
That was my biggest thing about them this year.
Yeah.
Is if he can do what he did with the Giants, I think they could be good. The one thing you and I have talked about on length about the Red Sox, and I feel like we're making this a Red Sox episode, but that's okay.
Now, for the right this minute.
The one thing about them is look at what the Giants did, and can they stay healthy? If they can stay healthy, which we saw Trevor Story just go down with an injury, we still don't know the extent. I thought we were going to hear about it today, but nothing's come out about it. But the bats showed. I mean, Saturday lost 2-1, and it makes you wonder. A left-handed pitcher. That was the game I had them losing to the Angels out of the 3 games. But it makes you wonder. Trevor Story hits lefties. If Trevor Story's in that lineup, do they score only 1 run? And is it a 2-1 final? It might be a 3-2 win. I mean, you can go through this whole series, and I mean, all 10 games they did. They could very well be 10-0. There's no reason why they couldn't be. If you got to feel bad for Pivetta. The guy is literally the definition of goes out there and pitches his balls off for you, loses a 1-0 heartbreaker to the Mariners that your offense didn't show up for. So what happens in his second start? He wins a 1-0 game. So again, the offense didn't show up for him. They just played the A's.
Yeah.
So, but going through their schedule, that game they should have won if the offense showed up. The 4-3 loss. Oh, they should have won that game, and if they put up more runs in the. Oh no, that was the error game. That was the error on Pablo Reyes because Devers was hurt. That error doesn't happen until 1-0 final. So again, you're going back to the offense needs to do more. But then they showed up in the 10th. They put 2 runs on the board. You go to Joely Rodriguez, who time and time again should not be on this team, and I don't think has he pitched since. He pitched one.
I don't believe so.
He pitched against Oakland, but that was it. And they literally had him face 3 batters, and they said, "You're done, buddy." And he hasn't pitched since. So I'm wondering if that's a move coming up. Like he's gonna now that they're back home, is he gone? They're gonna bring Bernardino back. But then that Angels game, they faced a lefty.
Yeah.
No Story. Devers makes an error at third base, and 2 runs score, and that's how they lose that game. There is no reason why they can't have the conversation be 10-0. Now I also got this as the conversation they could very well be 5-5 if Rafael is not your center fielder. I get that conversation, but the one thing that everybody said about this team going into the season was the pitching is a problem, and right now the pitching is not a problem. It is a bonus. You're getting great pitching. They are a fun team to watch, and they take bases. They don't steal them. They just take them. Jarren Durant, I wish he stole another base in that last game of that Oakland series and had the record for, I forget what the record is. I think it was most stolen bases to start a season, which would have been 7, and he would have done it at Rickey Henderson Field, which how fitting would that have been?
How many stolen bases would that guy have with these rules?
Yeah, with these bases,
Jesus
Christ. Yeah. But they're just fun to watch. I can't believe I literally scrolled past them, but I think I was trying to more be unbiased, but I can't not with how good they've been, and I've been on them from the beginning.
Yeah, you brought up Pivetta.
I guess I'm drinking 2 more.
Yeah, there you go, Astros. So Pivetta to me, like when you say Pivetta, it clicked right in my head. Michael Wacha for the Royals, and the Royals are 6-4. Wacha right now is 1-0 with a 2.25 ERA, 13 Ks, and a 0.5 whip. The guy leaves the Cardinals, goes to the Padres, is phenomenal goes to the Red Sox first, was phenomenal for the Red Sox while he was there. Then goes to Padres, phenomenal there. And now he's with the Royals, and I can't help but root for the damn guy. I hated him when he was with the Cardinals. I hated facing him. Yeah. But, like, the Royals, to me, like I said, I was watching that Kansas City game, watching them. They've got Raggins. They've got Wacha. They have, in Singer right now, they're all pitching really good. And I think that if their bats can come around, other than Witt, that team, that's a very scary team because if they've got some talent and they've got a decent farm system, that if they need to grab something down the road to fill in, because they're pretty weak at second and one of the corner outfield spots perhaps, but they've got some talent there. And the pitching, actually, they need bullpen help.
Yeah.
They got Will Smith, but they need bullpen help. But Michael Walker, to me, when you just mentioned Pavetta, Michael Walker is the surprise to me. Not, I shouldn't see it. Shouldn't be a surprise because that's all he's been fucking doing the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that's there's a lot of stuff going on. It has been Red Sox oriented, but that's just because I don't think either one of us expected any of this. We hoped for it, but we didn't expect it. And there's a lot of stuff going on. The Guardians, to me, again, like I said, if you told me they were 8-2 and they had a 7-run differential, I'd buy it. Will that change with Bieber out? Most likely, but still, it's going to be a very interesting next 2 weeks to see how things shake out because a lot of these teams are playing different opponents, how it goes, it's going to be very interesting. So with that said, let's keep rolling into these surprises. And the last podcast we were on, we were talking about Ronel Blanco, 30-year-old starting pitcher that had 8 career starts, throws no hitter against the Blue Jays. What's he doing his next start? He goes another 7 friggin' innings with 1 hit allowed.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think phenomenal. And I looked at his stats. He throws a 4-seam fastball, a changeup, a slider, and a curveball. Now, he's pretty across the board and even when he's using his fastball, changeup, and slider. It's 39% for the 4-seam, 32 for the changeup, and 25 for the slider. And he only uses the curveball 3.1% of the time. When I'm looking at it, and I was watching the game, that no-hitter, and noticed that, obviously it was getting late in the game, but there was just enough difference in the velocity between the fastball and the changeup to make it's a 93.6 average on the fastball right now with an 85.8 on the changeup. It's only 8 miles an hour difference, but that's just enough to either get weak contact or a swing and a miss. And the curveball drops just a little bit out, dips down. But then when I really was looking at when he was throwing his slider, it's got just enough movement from right to left that it changes. But the speed, to me, shows just like a changeup because it's actually 1 mile an hour faster on average right now at 86 compared to his changeup. And that right there, I think, to me, was something that where he's getting all this weak contact because he's not a high strikeout pitcher, but he's getting that weak contact, whether it be a fly ball or just grinding it into the dirt, is he's got those 3 pitches that he's basically relying on right now. Whereas fastball's, middle of the road for a major league pitcher. His changeup is just enough off and dips down where if they swing, they're either ahead of it and driving into the dirt. And then you've got that slider with that slight movement and the mile an hour difference between fastball and slider, that he's got a good mix right now. And I'll be very interested in watching him as it goes on to see if this is something that he's figured out or will the batters figure him out. But 16 innings with only 1 hit baseball, pretty damn good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to figure out his next 2 starts. He's got the Rangers again, it looks like, next weekend. Yeah. I think that's a tough one. 3rd time through, you're going to get or 3rd start, but the 2nd time facing the same team you just faced. That might be a tough one. But then after that, he's got the Braves. So he's going to have 2 tough starts coming out where I think once we see him after that Braves start, if that is the case and that's how it actually lines up,
Yeah.
That's where we can actually evaluate him. But the way he's pitched right now, it sounds like Verlander could be back soon. And judging about, we'll talk about him when we get to
Yep.
it. But Valdez today, it sounds like they may have to have a conversation about what their rotation looks like with when people come back and things are healthy. If Blanco keeps doing what he's doing, but so far I will say, and I'm not, and this is not because of the incident from 2017, but I've never been a big Astros fan. I've
No.
liked watching them play, but I've never been big on them. I mean, maybe
Mm-hmm.
that's being a Red Sox fan. There's been that I feel like they played each other every time they were in the playoffs. The last
Yeah.
three real runs the Red Sox had, 17, 18, and 21, and maybe that's changed it. But I don't know. I can't get sold on them yet.
Well, the Astros, before they came over to the American League, were in the NL Central. So, like,
That's
I
when I liked
hated
them.
them. I disliked them because they played the Cubs. The only
I like
time I liked them was when Kerry Wood was facing them.
I like coming
So,
in there. Biggio, Bagwell, Berkman, the Killer Bees.
I like those guys. I loved Biggio. I loved Bagwell. But at the same time, I'm not. I just can't find myself rooting for the Astros generally. But this Blanco, being 30 years old, I'm paying, again, back to what I first said originally. I'm paying attention to stuff that normally would be just I'll see how he does in the box score. But now I want to see him pitch. I want to pay
Yep.
attention a little closely. That next Rangers series, if that is how it matches up, very interested to see how that does. But then the true test, like you said, is that Braves. That's a phenomenal lineup, and they're 6-2. How does he fare against a National League lineup that has talent from top to bottom? It'll be very interesting.
Yeah, it looks like it's Friday. He gets the Rangers at 8:10, and then it looks like it's Wednesday the 17th at 2:10 against the Braves. Unless something changes and Verlander's back and
Yeah,
they got to shift things, but that's as of right now doing the mapping out. That's where it looks like his
yeah.
next two starts will be.
Very interesting. But that's obviously right now a feel good story for the first 2 weeks. Blanco and 16 innings of one hit baseball at age 30, and previous to his no hitter, 8 career starts. Just a great story. Definitely looking forward to seeing how that happens. I'll also be interested to track his, pitch velocity and usage, because it may change next time he sees, one of these teams, like the Rangers. Does he mix it up a little bit? Does he use his curveball more? It'll be very interesting to see. But you can't help but pay attention and root for a guy like that, even if it's on a team that you don't necessarily care for. So it's definitely fun, and that's what's great about baseball. You can find different players that you can root for, and they don't have to be on your favorite team.
Yeah, that's the way it was with the no hitter. I was rooting for him, even though I don't like the
Oh
Astros.
yeah,
I root for that
yeah,
all the time. Don't care what team you
yeah.
play for.
No, absolutely. So, before we get any further, why don't we just talk a little bit more in regards to people out there that are listening to this, whether you've been listening to the podcast, whether you're subscribe and you listen to this and you're part of the group that are watching us on Facebook. If you're interested in talking baseball, writing about baseball, or even just being part of this community and you have a favorite team, reach out to us. We're still looking for more people to contribute to the site, contribute, even joining CJ and I on the podcast. So go to the website, insidethediamond.com/join us and just let us know who your team is or what team and area you live in that you're interested in. Communicate with us, and we can give you a rundown in regards to what we're looking for, what our expectations are, which aren't much, mind you. We're just looking for people like-minded that love baseball and kind of want to just share their love for the game and put out content. There's a lot of fun stuff to be joining. There's a lot of stuff that'll be coming. We're trying to grow this site, grow the following, and we can't do that without other great people that love this game of baseball. So don't be afraid. Reach out to us, ask questions. We know everyone's busy. CG and I both have other jobs that are much more important than this, but we still find a way to talk about what we love. So if you're interested in baseball, go to the website, hit us up and let us know, or even comment on YouTube or wherever you listen to this. InsideTheDiamond.com/join us / and let us know what you're interested in. We can always find space for you within the group. We got a good group. And like I said, we're just looking for more people that love the game of baseball. So feel free to reach out. So now we've talked about all the biggest surprises, right? And what's the score checked, on this Rangers Astros game? Let's get to the real important stuff here.
Still 5-4, top three.
All right. All
You
right.
want to tell the
So
people what the bet is?
Yeah, might as well. Go ahead. Tell them.
All right, so apparently we made a bet. Well, JC texted me before, and so let's pick a game that's at 8 o'clock when we start the podcast, and whoever scores a run, pick a team, the other person drinks. So that's what we're doing right now. I got the game on, it's 5-4 Rangers, so we picked a hell of a game to do this.
Yeah, we're degenerates. It happens. Yeah, it just makes it a little bit more fun watching the games, talking baseball. But so now that we've talked all about the biggest surprises in the first 2 weeks, what's been your biggest disappointment so far in the season?
The Miami Marlins.
Mm-hmm.
And when we did the predictions, I had them finishing third. What I really go back to is their offensive struggles. I mean, they got pitching, and the pitching's been a struggle as well. So I shouldn't say just the offensive struggles, but I did something the other day. I wrote an article, and I called it the curse of Kim. I want to say her last name's in the G. So if you don't know her story, I wrote an article about it, but a brief summary of it is she was the GM of the Marlins. They asked her to take a lesser role, and she declined and decided to leave the organization. Personally, before they hired Breslow, I was kind of hoping the Red Sox would go get her because I thought what she did from her moves was fantastic, especially having a pitching factory that they usually do, and then going to add like somebody like Luis Ariz could go do that, flip it for the Red Sox, and you go get a pitcher. Like we know our story with the Red Sox, and they won't spend money. But so she's gone. They had, going into the season, a pitching staff of Jesus Luzardo, Yuri Perez, Braxton Garrett, Edward Cabrera, and then there was a bunch of guys fighting for that last spot. Well, so the real winners of all of that were the guys fighting for that last spot because they got the rotation. And so now here we are. And the season is starting. They're 10 games in? Are they 10 games?
Yeah.
Yes. No, 11.
10 games unless you're the Dodgers.
They're 1-10. So they played 11 games. I don't know if they played today. Yeah, they did. They lost 7-0 to the Yankees. And
Jesus.
so
Cortez had a shutout?
Yep.
We'll take
I
it.
don't know. He went 8 innings, gave up 2 hits. So the Reese Rise is the big one to me. And when I wrote it, he was hitting $1 something. Now he's hitting 250. So he's turning around. Jazz Chisholm was struggling. He led the team in, I believe it was RBI. Maybe it was home runs at the time. Or he led the team in something. But he didn't play today. So the one thing I'm going to go back to is, like I said, the pitching. So Perez will get to his story. Cabrera and Garrett are hurt. Sandy Alcantara is another big one. He won the Cy Young in 2022. He's out this year from Tommy John, so he's not coming back until 2024, and I think I saw May. So the big one was Jesus Luzardo, and then their second, number 2 pitcher is A.J. Puck, who is a reliever / was their closer last year.
Yeah.
Luzardo to start the year. Today he made his, I believe it's his 3rd start. It's his 3rd start, and it wasn't good. He gave up all 7 runs on 8 hits, 4 strikeouts, 5 walks in 4 2/3 innings. His ERA now is up to 7.20, and that's a name that, as Red Sox fans,
horrible. We talk about your trade value sinking like a Titanic. Holy shit!
So I actually saw, when I was writing that article and I was doing research on it, there's a chance that not just Luzardo, but Luis Ariz is now available for a trade. They may be selling everything. And now, as far as Luzardo, I get it because at the end of the day, you think of next year,
Yeah.
the Garrett and Cabrera injuries aren't bad. Like they'll be
No.
back this year. Perez, he's gonna have surgery, so he's out until probably I want to say middle of next year. Sandy's back in May, so they're gonna have all their pitching. And on top of that, and I think I talked about this either maybe twice, when we talked about prospects and when we talked about pitching. And they got two prospects in the top three of their organization from the rankings on our website that there's two more arms they could add, or they could trade
Yeah.
and go get a bat. So they're not a bad team. They're off to a bad start.
Yeah.
And for a team that was in the playoffs last year, this is a good stat. I don't know if many people know this. I added it in the article, so if you read it, you do know it. They are the first team, I believe, I'm getting this correct, in Major League Baseball history to start the season 0-8 after making the postseason the year before.
Wow.
And so they finally got their first win. I believe it was Sunday against the Cardinals, or was it Saturday? It might have been Saturday. I might have broke the curse. It was Saturday. I might have posted the article, and they won that game.
Yeah.
But it's been tough to watch for a team that I was excited about last year, and I thought they had a really good shot to make a run. I mean, they did it. I think they've only been in the postseason 3 times in their existence, and it was 97 and 03. Oh, no, 2020. I'm sorry, 2020 they made it, and they lost in the first round, but that was such a weird year with COVID and everything.
Yeah.
So does anybody really count that run?
No, I don't. But
that's one of them for me.
so for me, and I brought this up when we were doing the predictions for the AL, and I mentioned the Seattle Mariners getting off to a slow start. Now, they're not off to a Marlins slow start, mind you. They are, I do believe they're 4-6, but they're third in the AL West. But my biggest surprise is everyone picking Rodriguez for an MVP season, right?
Sorry.
He's played in 10 games. Rodriguez has. He's got 39 at bats. He's only scored 2 runs. He has 8 hits. Of those 8 hits, only one for extra bases. He's got 1 double, no home runs, and only 3 RBIs. He's slugging right now 231 with a 205 average. He's got 2 stolen bases. He's only walked twice, but he struck out 13 times out of those 39 at bats. You cannot get off to a fast start if your superstar is sucking out the gate. And I don't, it may be a little harsh, but Jesus, I know Mitch Haniger is playing well. I know that Ty France is hitting the ball well. He's on paternity leave right now, but Raleigh's hitting 200. Mitch Garver's hitting 208. Canzone is hitting 174. You can't win games if you don't provide runs. They've got 31 runs on the year. Their pitching staff is phenomenal, but you can't expect them to win 1-0 every game, 2-0 every game. They're only averaging out of their, 10 games that they played, they're only averaging a little over 3. If your team ERA, they've allowed 49 runs. They've allowed 49 runs on the year. 11 of those, mind you, have come from Hancock. Kirby's allowed 6, Castillo 8, Miller's only allowed 4, and Gilbert 5. But you cannot expect to be winning big games if your top player offensively, who is Julio Rodriguez, who a lot of people think is a top MVP candidate for the American League, is hitting and has no extra base hits except 1 double in his first 10 games. Not saying he can't turn it around, but when we talk about biggest surprises right now, I said during their predictions that they cannot afford in the West to get off to a slow start. That's a slow start for your superstar.
Yeah. I thought for some reason, I'm trying to pull it up as you're talking about it. I thought for some reason he had gone off to a rough start last year, but I'm not
He
seeing it right
did.
now. I thought he did,
The
but
whole team did. The whole team did.
I might be wrong on that. I don't see it.
Oh, Ellie Dela Cruz with an inside the park home run.
He's exciting. He just hasn't.
I wrote an article today in the preview that he was going to have at least 2 home runs in that series, and one of them was going to be a game winner. So I've got one of them locked down. Now he's just going to hit a game winner in one of these ones.
I would have bet that if you told me it, but you don't tell me things sometimes.
I was busy. Work had me tied up pretty much today, and I wrote when I could. But that start for Julio Rodriguez for Mariners team that I predicted to go deep in the playoffs, it's not looking good after the first 10 games right now.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. The team that we all had too falling from grace, which we could have had this to the biggest surprise, the Rangers.
Yeah.
They're leading that division, which
The
I guess
first thing I thought after they beat the Cubs was son of a bitch.
let's just stick with that. I guess with that division because that gives me my other one of my disappointment, and that's the Astros.
Mm-hmm.
I, 3-7 start. I didn't have them win the division when we did our prediction. I had them finishing in second. But getting off to 3-7, now they had a 4-game series against the Yankees to start the season. But I also expected them, like the Red Sox did with the Mariners, to split that, and they got swept. Did they have a tough start? Yes. I mean, the Yankees 4, Blue Jays 3, Rangers 4. It's a tough start. I mean, but we just said it. We had the Rangers falling back down to earth, and they've dropped 2 of 3 to the Rangers this series, and right now they're down 5-4. They took 2 of 3 from Toronto, but they started 0-4 against the Yankees. The Yankees you could add another big surprise where we both had them finishing third, and no Garrett Cole, and they're 8-2. I mean,
that's scary.
9-2. They won today.
That's scary. Granted, there's been, other than the Astros, they had to play the Diamondbacks, who, for me, between the Diamondbacks and the Phillies, those are 2 teams that are a little bit of a disappointment after 10 games. The Phillies being 4-5, Diamondbacks 4-6. I expect a little bit more. I did not see this kind of a start. Now, mind you, Phillies are only 2.5 games back from the Braves. Diamondbacks are only back 3, and there's plenty of time left. But I did expect them to get off to a little bit faster start than they did.
You could add the Jays to that list. 4-6 to start the year.
I don't know what I know we're going to get into the whole arm issue, but for those of you stat geeks out there, Gausman for the Blue Jays is way down in his velocity. That's not good. Not good at all. And he hasn't looked good. So, yeah, the Blue Jays are another name. I mean, there's, again, the schedule's a little wonky to start the season, I'd say the best. So it'll all shake out after the rest of April. And I think maybe, the podcast we do May 1st or, first week of May sound a little different. But the Blue Jays, Phillies, and Diamondbacks on top of, Julio Rodriguez, for me, have all been disappointments, not what I expected. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this next month plays out. But there's a lot of stuff right now, like the Pittsburgh Pirates being 8-2. The everyone in the NL Central is above 500. 500 or better.
Yeah.
So again, it's only been 10 games, other than, the Padres and Dodgers who've played that series over in Seoul. There's a lot of stuff going on. A lot more will shake out, but there's a lot of fun stuff to talk about. We can't cover it all, and we won't. But the biggest thing, I think we've touched upon it a few different times tonight without getting into it, is all the arm injuries. Tommy John. And you and I have shared different messages back and forth. I know this past week between work and, stuff where I was away, we haven't talked that much. But Tommy John is way too common these days. So I wanted to get your input and kind of get your thoughts on everything that's going on in the league and what you're thinking around this Tommy John and arm injury stuff in the major leagues.
So what did we see this weekend? We saw Shane Bieber Spencer Strider from the Braves, Bieber on the Guardians, Yuri Perez on the Marlins, and am I missing one?
You
Is there
said
one more?
Bieber, Perez, Valdez.
I haven't gotten the Valdez yet. Strider.
Okay. Strider, who's all, I mean, that's speculative, but
Yeah, they still haven't said anything about that. I think he does need elbow surgery, but I don't think they said it was Tommy John or not. Maybe I read that wrong. Um, Today, Jeff Passan tweeted out that Framber Valdez was scratched from his start today against the Rangers, which is the game we, of course, have this bet where if it was Valdez, I'd probably take the Astros. But he has elbow soreness, and he's going to be evaluated by doctors to determine the severity of his injury. And the another pitcher that's not having Tommy John, but is out for 2 months, and we'll see what happens going forward, is Garrett Cole for the Yankees. A lot of the things I saw this weekend regarding the elbow injuries was the pitch clock. Now, could that have anything to do with it? Maybe, because I believe, if I remember correctly, last season, going into this season, they shortened the clock. And it wasn't by much. It was like maybe 3 to 5 seconds or something like that. But I think they shortened it. And people are blaming that as the reason. Now, I saw it today a lot, and I saw it pop up over the weekend as well recently, and nobody's talking about it. Back in 2020, I think it was 2020, it was 2021, when the sticky stuff situation came out.
yep.
And, they were banning sticky stuff, and they were checking everybody's hands coming off the mound. And they're still doing it. I mean, it's still a thing.
Yeah.
Tyler Glasnow came out after suffering an injury while pitching for the Rays. Now he's a Dodger.
Yeah.
And in that video, he said that was what caused his injury, was that sticky stuff was affecting how his delivery was. And the more and more I thought about it after watching that back and seeing what's going on with everybody, I kind of agree with him. I don't think it's the pitch clock. I think it's the fact of the sticky stuff. Now, is there still spin rate and everything going on in baseball? Yes. But is that what's causing the wear and tear on these arms and these elbows? I am starting to wonder if that's it and not the pitch clock, and we're overlooking the sticky stuff conversation. Because the numbers, from what I saw, I believe, again, this is what I saw, and I don't know the facts and the statements to back it up, so stick with me. I believe it was 10 years from 2021, it was an average of 25.4 pitchers a year getting Tommy John. Now that's, you got 5 starters and probably roughly 8 to 7 bullpen arms. So you're talking 12 pitchers, 30 teams. So 25.4 pitchers a year. So we'll say 25 because the 0.4 is on the lower side. So we'll say 25. Over the last year and a half, we're looking at an average of 52 pitchers a year getting Tommy John surgery.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's where everybody's going to. It's the pitch clock because the numbers have ticked up. I think that's where the argument is coming.
Why? What the fuck does the pitch clock have to do with?
Because they're seeing that stat and they're saying the pitch clock came into effect over that time frame.
So they're just recency bias, right?
They're seeing the stats of everybody's getting this now, and they just change things to the pitch clock. Whereas I wonder, and this is why I go back to the sticky stuff, is just the wear and tear, and people's arms are starting to break down because they can't use the sticky stuff. And I've had this conversation with my nephews where I've told them that, and this is an issue I've seen throughout youth baseball and high school baseball and everything, is kids are throwing curveballs way too soon before their arms develop. And I've told my nephews that they aren't allowed to throw a curveball until the age of 13. I don't care. Everybody tells them, and I will teach them, or their father can teach them, whoever, but they're not allowed to throw a curveball until they're the age of 13. And I'm going to tell the same thing to my son as he gets older. Do not throw a curveball. There's so many other pitches that you can throw that don't affect that arm angle and that change to how you deliver the baseball that will affect your arm and hurt what you could be in the future if that's what you want to do and that's where it is. And I think that's the problem. Is I think we're getting to that point now where you've taken the sticky stuff out of it and now everything's changed and you're seeing wear and tear getting worse and
spin rate.
It's all those It's all those analytics. And I've told you this from the beginning of the day we started talking. I I'm old school. I grew up
Yeah.
in 93. I was born in 93. I grew up in the 90s and I followed the box score and I didn't care about the spin rate. I followed RBIs, home runs, average. I care about the OBP and all that stuff, but I don't care about your exit velocity. I never cared about your exit velocity. I never cared about how hard you hit the ball. I care about what you do on the field. I don't like, and then pitching wise, I don't care about your spin rate. I don't care about all that stuff. I care about how you get outs. Just get an out. I want to see your strikeouts. I want to see your whip. I want to see, your walk per nine, your K per nine. That stuff I care about. I don't care about the other stuff going on outside of it. I've never cared about that. And I think that's the thing now is you're seeing a lot of pitchers and a lot of young kids coming up where they care about that. And that's what they want to do. They want to say, I got this nasty spin rate. Look what I can do. And
Yep.
I think this number is only going to go up. And something's got to change. I don't think
So
being allowed back is the answer, but there's got to be something you can do where we can fix this.
So as you're mentioning all this, my son and I, he's got tryouts coming up for his 8th grade team, and he always likes to try to throw a slider or whatever. I'm like, look, you don't first and foremost, you're a second baseman, shortstop, and outfielder. You don't need to be throwing that shit right now. But then I went back and thought, because all through Little League, Babe Ruth, middle school, I didn't really pitch much. But my dad, growing up, he pitched in high school. He actually, before they had all the levels of minor league, actually went to a Padres training camp. Basically training camp, tryout, whatever. Back then, I'm 42, so he's older than I am, obviously, but he actually had Tommy John before, at that point in time. So when he was teaching me, it was all about control, right? Don't worry necessarily about how hard you throw, but understand where you can win the battle with the hitter, right? If you understand who's up at bat, if you can get in on their hands and crowd that corner, whether it be a righty or a lefty, and get in on their hands, you're going to generate weak contact. And I didn't start throwing the changeup was the first, I threw a 4-seam, 2-seam, and then it went directly to a we tweaked different changeups and even my arm angle on it. But I didn't start throwing a curveball or slider for that matter until I was, like you said, 13 years old, 13, 14 when I was in Babe Ruth. But it was all about making sure, protecting and not doing that twist, not trying to get that snap where you're messing with that nerve and that muscle. So when we started talking about this, I was reading about the Power Factory. And you mentioned something just a minute ago in regards to, I would be very interested to see the number of people or pitchers that have the Tommy John surgery that are starters versus back end relievers, right? Because you look at back end relievers, most of those guys are power guys that are either throwing a high 90s fastball, they've got a cutter or a split finger or a nasty changeup. And it would be very interesting. Maybe over the next 2 weeks, we can do some research on this. But it seems to be these starters that are pitching, and they're always looking for. I mentioned it earlier about Blanco, his 4-pitch repertoire. And you look at this and see how much of this has got to do with them trying to find that advantage with having so many different pitches, or trying to be more powerful and not giving themselves enough time to relax in the off season. So they're actually throwing almost a half a season in the off season. And how much of that is got to do with work that they're doing on those breaking pitches, the curveballs, the sliders, all this stuff. It would be very interesting to see, because I know growing up, and I'm older than you, Greg Maddux, he threw, 92, 93, but control. He did exactly what I was talking about earlier. He knew the matchups. He knew where he needed to be, where the ball needed to be. Wasn't worried about the strikeouts. Kind of like a Kyle Kendricks now. Well, not now, God forbid, because he's given up way too many hits. But earlier in his career, when he would go 7 innings on 86 pitches, he's generating weak contact. Guess what? An out is an out. I don't give a shit if it's strikeout, fly ball, or ground ball. If you can get 3 outs on 4 pitches, that's perfect. It may not get you the $96 million contract over 4 years, but at the same time, I wonder how much of it would be very interesting to see. And this is a much bigger project on this topic, but looking at the starting pitchers and look at their contracts, but then also look at their pitching selection of what they have in their arsenal. And look, because a lot of these guys now, when it goes into the offseason, they're not really taking a fucking break. They're going to the power factory. They're trying to gain that velocity. They're trying to work on all these pitches. And those pitches are what you're supposed to be working on in spring training. So these guys are throwing, 160 to 100 to 200 innings a season. How many pitches are they throwing in the offseason? You can throw a breaking ball and kid around all you want, but if you want to see truly what you have to throw that at 100%. Right? You can't fuck around in the offseason thinking you're working on a slider or a cutter or whatever you're trying to without going 100%. So they're pitching almost a third of a season before spring training even starts.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be very interesting to see. But this is a problem, and it's unfortunate because you mentioned something about dads. Not every dad out there is looking out for their kids. There's a great majority, 80% that are looking out for their sons, even daughters for that matter. I don't want to exclude anyone, that are looking out for what's best for them. And then you have that other small group that want the stats. If you start your kid throwing a curveball, slider, or whatever the fuck you think they can throw at age 10 and 11 to try to make your little league team better, you're just hurting them. Because you're seeing it now with these pros. They're all looking for the big money. They're all looking, because again, it's all about the stat cast. It's all about exit velocity. They're trying to gain those advantages. And all you're really doing is you're hurting yourself. So there's a lot of interesting stats. I think you and I offline, if we get into it, we can revisit this topic probably 3-4 weeks from now and provide some further information, because it seems to me off the top of my head, you're seeing more starting pitchers than you are closers.
Yeah. I did see one Yankees reliever. I forget who it was. There was a Yankees reliever, I believe, that's getting Tommy John. Okay. Is it Loizinger?
Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about. But yes, there's so much that, I mean, fortunately for us, like, this is new, right? We're new with this. We're building this podcast. We're building the website, but there's topics we can approach. And any of you that are listening that have sons or daughters that are playing baseball, whatever, do not let them start throwing that break-in shit. And even with wiffle ball, because all that stuff messes with your arm. Don't let them start that until they're age appropriate. Their bodies are still growing. You don't need that wear and tear on your arms and the ligaments. Just be mindful of what you're doing, because it has long-term effects. And we're seeing that now with these guys not taking a break. And I think if you look back when we were younger in the 90s, how many of these guys were actually in the off season? Yeah, they were doing workouts. They're staying in somewhat shape, but for the most part, were they really throwing 300 to 400 pitches in an off season? And I think that's probably low.
Granted, they were doing that in a game,
Yeah.
Back in the 70s?
Yeah.
But with how much, I wish there was, like I said, I don't like the analytics and stuff, but I would love to see what guys threw back then to get to 300 pitches. I bet you that's a large variety of multiple different kinds of fastballs.
Yeah.
I mean, what we have now is you got guys throwing 100, and then their curveballs coming in at, you know, maybe mid 80s. Sometimes you even see the low 90s on a curveball, but it's off speed. So I get it.
Mm-hmm.
You're throwing off from you throw 100, and then you come in with a 90-mile-an-hour curveball. I get it. But that's got to do with it. Back then, you're throwing, you know, they're throwing 76-mile-an-hour curveballs, or, you know, their changeups are different. Like I threw one of my favorite pitches to ever that I ever threw was a circle change, but it's
Yeah.
also the reason why I have arm issues. I threw it at 11 years old, and that's why I
Yeah.
tell my nephews, I'm going to tell my son not to throw it until they're older, because it's part of the reason why I developed arm issues. That I literally at one point as a catcher threw a snap throw to first base to pick a kid off, and I felt my arm go. Something wasn't right, and the next 5 or 6 pitches, I was bouncing the ball back to the pitcher. I couldn't
Yeah.
even throw it back from home plate to the pitcher's mound, and I played the whole season with it. I found a way to adapt, and I went up to my dad, who was actually the assistant coach. Now, like you said, my dad wasn't the head coach, and he wasn't pushing me to throw curveballs or anything. And you know, it was just a freak accident where I threw a snap throw, and it probably had built up from the fact that I was 11 years old throwing off speed, not knowing what I know now. And it just built up, and that's what happened. And I ended up playing the whole season with it. And I said something before the championship game that I couldn't catch that day because my arm was
Yeah.
done. And I didn't want to hurt the team at that point, because now you're trying to
Yeah.
win a championship. Like, you're at that game, and you're not trying to hurt the team. But
Yeah.
it's something I took it as a learning thing that nobody around me at the time. I had one of those teams where it wasn't like we had the best kids in the league. It was we were a good team, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody around us, like, nobody was pushing anybody to do anything like that. And we were all. I mean, I was a junior and sophomore in high school, so I was 15. So my arm's developed. I mean, and not fully developed, but it's enough where you can start throwing a curveball. So that's 4 years from 11 to 15, and my arm went. I have a
Yeah.
friend who had Tommy John his freshman year of college, and then had to have it again. It's one of those things where it builds up if you don't know about it.
Yeah.
So if your kid, like you said, if your kid's playing baseball, do the research and find
Yeah.
out like what the right age. My uncle was my great uncle, my grandfather's brother, was a pitcher in the minor leagues. And he came up to me when I was 13 and said, even at 13 years old, to not throw off speed. And I said, I already was. And he said, you're going to have our problems. And sure enough, he was right.
Yeah.
And I stopped pitching. And I became a catcher. And then after that happened, where the snap throw, I stopped catching. I became a first baseman. I played outfield. And then eventually I just became a designated hitter. I just
Yeah.
couldn't play the field anymore. I couldn't do anything right with my arm. So,
There's a lot of stuff like we said, there's a lot of people now, and I think this has to do with pretty much any sport where it's all become centralized, right? You only play one sport and you work on that all year long. And I mean, I see that with my son to a certain extent. His season just ended, right? And I've already got him signed up to do hockey stuff starting in April. So there's no off season anymore for these sports. But like, I just remember as a kid in Little League and even Babe Ruth, before I started throwing sliders or curveballs, and my dad would work with the catcher, right? He had track in his mind how many of the breaking balls I was throwing. He would then call for me to go to either 3/4 or sidearm, because my four seam or two seam sidearm was easier on my arm, and we worked on it. It was easier, but it also presented a different look to the hitter and was less stress on my arm. And I think it's going to be a problem, and it's going to continue being a problem, even more so now where you see kids focusing on one sport. It's just going to continue. And it's
mhm.
too bad. And I don't know if it's the sticky stuff, if it's just overworked, but there's a lot more that you and I can look into, and we will. But it's a shame to see the pitchers that we named have these issues, not to mention the pitchers that we've seen have issues. and then compare it to back in the 90s where you saw pitchers that didn't have the issues and they were phenomenal. Now the hitters are different. There's a lot of stuff changes, but it's just too bad because these guys are ruining their arms and it may not be in the season. It could be just something that's going on. It's too bad. So at this point in time, I think there's more that we can come back to and circle back with this whole Tommy John arm surgery stuff. But right now, I think if people are looking to, they enjoy the podcast. If you look at the website, you're reading the articles, and you want to support the brand, go ahead to the website, go to the store, insidethediamonds.com, and look around, grab something you like, whether it be a t-shirt or a hoodie. Like I've mentioned in several other podcasts that we've had, there's more to come. But that's another way to support the brand, allow us to do some more fun things, allow us to introduce a few more items that you can purchase. We're working on canned koozies, which would be great right now while we're doing the podcast. But there's a lot of different things, hats. But right now, all we have is the hooded sweatshirts, t-shirts. Go on to the website, store.insidethediamonds.com/ pick something out, support us there, pick something out that you want to wear. And I mentioned it last time. I think I've got a hooded sweatshirt coming that I'd like to wear personally. And it'd be great for you guys to support us. There's a lot of stuff. Like I said, we're new, coming out with more stuff each day, trying to do everything that we can to provide those supporters little items that they can purchase to support the brand. So, like I said, https://store.insidethediamonds.com/ take a look, grab something, and support the brand. If you've got ideas or things you'd like to see us offer, throw those out there too, whether it be in the YouTube chat or whatever. Just let us know what you're thinking. So the last topic we have tonight, and to me is kind of a sad topic, being born in 1981, growing up where you had the Bash Brothers, you had the Billy Bean Moneyball era, is the situation that's going on in Oakland. They just announced that they've come to terms with the city of Sacramento, and they're going to play there, I believe, for 3 years. They're going to leave Oakland after Oakland made an attempt. They're going to play in Sacramento at, I believe it's the Giants minor league stadium, one of their affiliates. And waiting, I'm assuming they're doing this while they wait for Las Vegas to make a more appealing option in where they're going to play. The last thing I'll say before turning it over to CJ is, how the hell do you expect a large city to build you a huge fucking stadium when you're not willing to put a valid team on the field? This is Moneyball to a dirt poor extent, what they're trying to do right there. And it is a shame, and I feel awful for the Oakland Athletic fans right now, because that's an organization that if you had a owner that gave a shit about the team and actually gave a shit about winning, they could do so much better. That stadium is one of the stadiums that I would love to visit to see a baseball game because of what I remember as a kid. Not now. I mean, shit, you could go now and basically steal a ticket. But growing up as a kid, watching, McGuire, Canseco, Mulder, Zito, Tejada, all those guys play. And now to see where it is, like, my son loves Moneyball. I love the movie Moneyball.
Great movie.
But to see what the hell, and to see, I'm sorry, but when the owner spoke the other day, he could not even mention who was going to be on the team. And the only major league player he could mention that Sacramento fans could have to be excited was Aaron Judge. Like, I'm sorry. I worked in sales for a long time. If you're trying to sell a city or even a potential city to provide you with a stadium where you're supposed to fill it, I don't know if this guy gives a shit about winning or if he's all in it for the money. Or if, I don't know why he even owns the fucking team.
He's in it for the money.
He's doing a shit job.
Is he? I mean, so I agree with you. I feel terrible for the fans of Oakland. And I love what they've done with the whole reverse boycott of showing up, and they sold out that stadium for that game that they did
Yeah.
that. And I love it for them as a fan of the game. I hate it in the aspect of they gave the owner money. He was down money, and all of a sudden one day he got a random bunch of money coming in because you go to a game and you bought the ticket, you're gonna buy food, you're gonna drink, you're gonna buy a beverage, your beer, soda, whatever. You're gonna get something. You're spending money while you go there, and he's getting what he wants in that reverse boycott. But what they've done so far as a team, is a terrible product. Now, as a fan, as he's sitting there going, you know, the Oakland Raiders for football went to Vegas and look what they did. And look what Vegas Golden Knights did. You know what? I'll wait because I think from what I've understood, and I'm not fully on the story because like you, I think it pisses me off that it's the Oakland A's. It's what you grew up with. It pissed me off when the Raiders moved. It pissed me off, with all the other football teams that moved, like the Rams moving to LA and all that. um, all that stuff pissed me off. So this bothers me. I like the idea of expansion. I like the idea of moving a team, like not moving a team, but bringing a team back. Like Montreal Expos, I've said for years should be a team again. And so the idea of expansion, I like. I like the idea of the expansion draft, like the Vegas Golden Knights did in hockey, and the Seattle Kraken. That idea is fun. But now we're moving. So, from my understanding, the stadium won't be done until 2027. So it sounds like they're going to Sacramento from 2024 to 2027, or sorry, 2025 to 27. So 3 years. And I'm just curious on this whole aspect of what they're doing in Sacramento. So when you sent this to me to set this up, I crunched some numbers. And through the first, I wish I went back, and I didn't have the time today to do it, but I went back through the first 7 games of the season because they opened the season at home. They had a 4-game series against Cleveland and a 3-game series against Oakland. Boston. And after those 7 games, I took all the numbers, and I really wish I didn't because now thinking about it, it includes opening day, which the hype of opening day, everybody knows. I mean, we're going tomorrow. I've never gone to an opening day in my life, and I'm so excited for tomorrow. So I really kind of wish I just did 6 games and took the average of what they did, but that's besides the point. Through the first 7 games, even with opening day, they've averaged 6,438 fans
Jesus
through 7
Christ.
games. Now, that stadium in Sacramento, from what I've understood, holds 14,000. So part of me wonders, is this move not that the owner, and maybe his demeanor is different, but he's losing so much money by being in Oakland while he waits for this move, that going to a stadium that only holds 14,000, which is still more than double what he's getting, is that the idea of the move is now he's not losing as much money. But the weird thing to me with this move is what happens to Sacramento? That there's a team there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And with minor league baseball, ever since COVID, they play 6 games in a week, Tuesday through Sunday. They have a series against the same team. So how do you do that? Now you got to base the whole Major League Baseball schedule off of that. to the Oakland. Are the Oakland A's going to play 6 games at home and then 6 games on the road while Sacramento's home? So we got 3 games, maybe 7 games, maybe. I mean, you got a 4-game series against like the Dodgers, and then you got a 3-game series against the Angels, and then all of a sudden now you're on the road again because Sacramento's home. Is the name changing? I mean, the Sacramento A's for 3 years. You go get it. Then
No, Sacramento Athletics.
Sorry,
That's the biggest thing. Everything's athletics now, and
that's another money grab.
Oh yeah, 100%. Now all the material, all the gear, but I mean, who the hell are you selling it to? You've already shit on all the diehards.
But there's still. I mean, think about it. The Raiders. The Raiders owner shit on Oakland the same kind of way as he moved to Vegas, and there's still people out there that own in Oakland that own Raiders gear, and they're still buying it. Like they still care. So like you still have those diehards that care.
Are they diehards or are they folks that have never been to Las Vegas looking for an experience? And I hate to say that, but like it would be very interesting to see. Like hockey's one thing because I think you see a lot of people going out to Vegas during the time frame of hockey season.
Yeah.
And football's a little bit different, but baseball is such a grind. 81 games a year, right? Hockey plays 82. Football plays 16. That's 8 to 9 home games a year. Hockey's 41. How in the fuck do you expect to fill or even come 3/4 of the way full in a new stadium in Las Vegas for 81 fucking games? You know what would be interesting?
I'm not.
What about it would be interesting. There's a Las Vegas team, right, for minor leagues?
The Aviators, yes.
Okay, no, and you have Reno. You have Reno that's close, right? You have Reno that's fairly close to Las Vegas. Not exactly, the same, but it would be very interesting to see Las Vegas and Reno's minor league numbers in regards to capacity, because I think you're going to find a hard sell in the summer in that heat, right? Unless they build a dome, and who knows what they're going to do. But for me, this is just, it sucks. It sucks for baseball to see the Oakland Athletics going to Sacramento. And like you mentioned, Sacramento, that minor league team, I think I heard, I could be wrong, that they're even thinking about playing that minor league team in Oracle Park while the Giants are gone, which is great. But at the same time, now you've got a stadium that holds like 30,000 people that'll fill, what, $4 grand? Yeah. It's just a shit situation, and it's wrong for baseball. I understand relocation. I understand expansion, but something has to be done because it's not right what's going on in Oakland.
You know what's going to happen from all this falling prospects, and the more and more I think about it, is by the time they're in Vegas, they're going to have probably 2 to 3, maybe 2. They're not the first overall pick this year, are they? They're going to have
not yet.
No,
they're not.
Lottery happened. They're going to have 2 to 3 top prospects that come up, and they're going to spend money. So they're not going to be competitive when they first get there, but the year after that, I wouldn't be surprised if they're back in the conversations, because the Astros are one of the worst farm systems in baseball. The Rangers are one of the best, but they threw money at a bunch of pitchers. So what are they going to do? I think that's where they're looking. I think that's where the owner's at. Is once we get to Vegas, watch the product we put out.
Man, I think you're giving him too much credit. I don't think this owner gives a shit. I honestly don't think he gives a shit other than the bottom dollar.
Oh, no, it's all about money for all the owners. I mean, as a Red Sox fan, we know that.
Yeah, we know that, yeah.
I mean, he didn't want to spend money. And, granted, I feel bad. I said for the summer, I was like, I don't know if I'll spend the money to go to a game. But then they hit you with the 04 teams coming, and we're doing Wakefield, and that's what I grew up with. I got to go.
Yeah.
And then the team got hot, and then I mean, I'm excited about the team, about the Red Sox, and but I didn't know if I wanted to spend the money to actually go to a game. Granted, I'm spending the money for Nesson, but
That's a
so
whole nother topic.
yeah, we can get into that later on in another podcast. There's less to talk about, but it's just I had to go. It's one of those things I had to go, and I just it's I think I don't know what the thought process is. It is a money grab. It is a money grab,
Yeah.
and I think that's the thing is he is losing money being at the Coliseum, and the
But
stories.
that's all due to what he's putting on the field, though.
I don't know if you've heard this. I don't know what podcast you listen to because we haven't talked about that outside of here, but I remember back. It might have been a couple of years ago before everything changed, but it was I think it was the Barstool podcast before Jared Carrabis left, and Dallas Braden, who was one of my
Yeah.
very underrated. I think he was a very good pitcher. Was
Yep.
telling stories as he's the broadcaster for the A's now. Was telling stories about how there's like rats doing backstrokes in the soda fountain, and there's the visitor. Was it last year or 2 years ago, where the visitors commentators couldn't go into the booth because there was a possum living in there, so they had to call the game from the first base suite because nobody had bought it, so it was open. So they put them in there while the possum was just living in the visitors room. It's like he clearly doesn't care because
No.
he's losing money, and I think that's the thing is I think he's losing money, and so he doesn't care. Now downgrading, does he start to care because he's not losing money anymore?
Well, it all goes like you lose money when you put shit on the field. If you're not willing to spend, you can only like they did a real good job in the late 90s, early 2000s where they hit on prospects, right? They hit a lot on their pitching prospects.
They were the
Now,
Marlins of the early 2000s.
correct. So, you mentioned the lottery. So let's say that the move to Vegas happens, and let's say that they're all high on these prospects, right? Prospects are exactly that. It's potential. Potential means shit until it turns into the hard work and actually ends up in being like real life, good quality baseball. So, what happens if they move to Oakland and these prospects? You're going to have to spend one way or the other. You have to grab one big free agent to kind of bring the attention to the team and support these young kids. What happens if they do so and these prospects turn out not to be the 2000 prospects? You know what I mean? Like, what if, like, is he going to continue to dump money? He's going to have to, right? He's going to have to dump more money in. And that's something he has never done. So it's going to be a
Well,
very
so
interesting situation.
that's the interesting thing, though, is now that I think about it, I think he kind of tried to put a product on the field this year. I mean, he went and got pitching. He added. I mean, he didn't add an ace. Okay, I'm not saying not put a product. He tried to do
Stretching.
something. He tried. He went out and got Alex Wood, who's not a bad pitcher, and
He'd
he
do
went out and
well with the
added.
Red Sox, but
Exactly. He added Ross Stripling, two guys that aren't bad pitchers,
they're on the
and
back ends of their career. Yeah. He's trying to
so
bridge the gap. I get it. Yeah.
he got him cheaper, but he got arms that are enough to get people intrigued to watch. Is the way I would put it. Like I mean, I watched that Red Sox series and they didn't pitch bad. Stripling and Pivetta went toe to toe. It was a 1-0 game.
I
You know,
noticed you
Stripling.
bring up the Red Sox series, but you failed to bring up the most recent series against the Tigers. It's
Yeah,
okay. It's
yeah,
okay. I know what happened.
yeah. I know. I
I
know
know
that.
what
I watched it.
happened.
I watched it. Oh, I watched it. I wish I didn't. I watched it. But the line. That's the other thing too is they score. They're scoring runs, but the way they're scoring them, I feel like it's all home runs. And in
Yeah,
that Oakland ballpark, they're not going to
it's
hit
not a
home
fit.
runs. So
No.
is that another reason they're moving? Is the owner know something? Like is you look at the stats and go, they're not hitting home runs. Again, that could go back to the Moneyball conversation. Get on base. I don't care. Get on base.
Yeah.
But it's just they are. It's sad to watch. It
Yeah.
is very sad to watch.
They're a team I always rooted for. Always rooted for the A's.
I was the biggest fan of Mulder, Hudson, Zito.
Yeah.
And then I think even towards the end of that time frame, I think Rich Harden was the number 4. And I like
Isringhausen as a closer.
But Isringhausen was part of that. You had to replace him. And I like Bradford. Oh, yeah. I like Bradford as a closer. Yeah. Hatterberg, I loved Scott Hatterberg.
Yeah.
Tejada left, but I like Tejada. I was always a big Tejada. I like the A's. I've always liked the A's. It's like we've said time and time again, it is sad to see. But I think overall, when you look at the money aspect, that's where I go back to. I think he's losing money, and I think he had to find a way to. Because I feel like that there was a conversation of them playing at the AAA Las Vegas stadium while they waited for the move.
Yeah, I did see that, but I mean, I think as we talk about this, it would be very interesting because you brought up a point, or we both did, in regards to prospects. It would be very interesting to track while he's been owner, right? What they've had for hits and misses in their prospects most recently, because we're talking, I think anyone that's a new baseball fan or younger baseball fan, when they think A's, maybe they didn't grow up with Henderson, Stewart, and Walt Weiss and the rest of the group, with Canseco and McGuire. I think a lot of people probably relate to the A's in the Moneyball, and most of it may be what they know from that movie. So it would be very interesting to do a little kind of deep dive into their prospects from, let's say, 2000, we could even do 2015 and on, and see where they are.
I would love that.
You know what I mean? It would be interesting because I think this situation with Oakland is going to be developing. I don't want to beat the dead horse now because I don't think either one of us like the situation, and there's still more details to come. But I think that's something we could look into and revisit on a small portion of a podcast, just to give an idea in regards to what they hit on from, say, 98 to 2008 versus what they've hit on from 2008 to 2015, from 2015 to now, just to give an idea in regards to when you're scouting baseball, there's no proven science to this shit. Stuff happens, and I think that could be part of it. Like you said, part of the situation is all of a sudden he's losing money because the people that they're putting money into is dying out. So
let's just go real quick. I'm going to bang this out real quick because I think this is hysterical. You said 2015, so I just pulled it up. Yeah. And then one overall prospect, Matt Olson.
Oh, fuck me, running.
The third overall prospect, Matt Chapman.
He's having a fucking good year with San Francisco too.
The second one is somebody none of us have ever heard of, Franklin Barreto.
Where is he a pitcher?
No, he was a middle infielder.
Yeah, sure he is.
Yeah, he worked out real well. Oh, he was the number 1 prospect in 2016. That worked out real well.
Yep.
It continued in 2017 as the number 1 overall prospect. So that tells you all you really need to know. The other one, I went to 2018, and I just wanted to say this really quick. The top 2 prospects that year, AJ Puck and Jesus Luzardo, who are now the 1 and 2 starters of the Miami Marlins.
Did they trade them to the Marlins?
Yeah, but I forget what the trade
was. For Marte? Was that for Marte?
I think they were separate trades. I think they were both separate. I think the Marte was Luzardo, and I feel like Puck was either a free agent signing, and it continued, by the way, in 2019, but Luzardo jumped to 1 and Puck went to 2.
So for our listeners, without boring them to death, why don't we make a promise that we'll dive deeper in, because maybe we can prove that the owner and the scouts there, part of the organization, were in trying to build winning teams. And unfortunately, some of these prospects didn't pan out, or perhaps the prospects that they traded at the time weren't what they thought they were of caliber and now have turned into more. And what they got for pieces to try to win didn't pan out. So I think this is a much bigger project for us to look at because there's so much to dive into. Like we're assuming that this owner is just losing money hand over fist and really didn't care, but maybe he put in the effort and his scouts, manager, everyone, and they were just dealt with trying to do too much with too little, and they did stuff too soon. Because I mean, Frankie Montez,
Yep,
pitching with the Reds right now. There's a lot here, and I think this is something you and I can dive into a little bit deeper and revisit later in the year to kind of touch base as we find out more with what's going on with Oakland, and we're saving our listeners some time. But obviously there's a lot going on, and obviously this Oakland situation is something that is, anyone that's been a baseball fan for a long time knows that the Oakland Athletics, being a team that has value to the West, is good for baseball. And I think we should revisit it, and we can. So, I don't know about you. I'll ask you, but do you have any last thoughts on the first 2 weeks of baseball?
No, I'm excited it's back. I'm excited where things are going. I think this is going to be one of the most chaotic seasons we've had in a while, the way things have started out. I mean, that might be wrong coming into the year, but I am excited for tomorrow. I'm excited to go see that 2004 team. I'm excited to see Bale pitch in person. I haven't done that ever. And I'm excited to see the Orioles, in person, although I've seen a lot of tweets of there's 3 names that a lot of people as Orioles fans want off the team and they want the prospects up. So I'm excited to see that happen. I've seen, I'm not going to name names on who's cut, but I've seen that they want Mayo and Holiday up, Ace out, and they're pissed about what they're putting out there right now. So that's an interesting conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, me as well. I'm excited to go to my first opening day in 7 years. I'll reach out to you tomorrow once I get there and get things figured out. But yeah, there's so much going on, and I think that as we continue to grow this podcast, we'll take deeper dives into some of these topics. And not saying we're gonna branch off and have one-offs and record more than one night a week, but there's definitely some need for some deeper conversations on some of these topics, and we'll try to do our best to provide our insight and a little bit of research to show you what we're talking about. But first 2 weeks have been great. Like I said earlier, I'm watching a hell of a lot more baseball than I used to. I'm having a lot of fun doing it, and I'm really looking forward to experiencing opening day with my 10-year-old daughter tomorrow. And it just goes to show extending that family tree of love for the game. And I'm really looking forward to it. So for me, I want to thank all our listeners for listening tonight. Follow, subscribe, follow us on all the channels through social media. I'm really enjoying doing this and talking baseball with you, CJ. And, I appreciate all our listeners, and I hope everyone tunes into future podcasts. How about you?
I can't wait. And to update everybody on our bet, it's 10-5 Astros, so things are looking great for me.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah. Andrew,
good for you.
Enjoy, everybody. We'll see you guys next week, hopefully.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it, and tune in next week.